Happy Monday, all you Minties. Uncanny Omar here from Near Mint Condition, and join me today for an advanced look at the Excalibur Omnibus Volume 2 from Marvel Comics. Let's get started. Before getting started, a huge thank you to David Gabriel and the folks at Marvel for sending us a copy of this omnibus. This omnibus is due out in the direct market and book market on February 8th. So both covers will be available on that day. And speaking of both covers, what we're looking at here is the direct market cover by Joe Madureira. On the left-hand side is the standard edition cover by Alan Davis. And yes, Joe Mad does draw a couple of issues in here and one of the short stories. And of course, Alan Davis is the phenomenal, legendary artist that co-created Excalibur with Chris Claremont. So let's take a closer look at this book. So what we're looking at here is the cover to issue number 57, where the X-Men team up with Excalibur. And I'll talk about that when we look inside of the book. We have the Excalibur logo in there. That's pretty interesting that they kept the logo, because within this omnibus, they changed the old logo, the sword, to the newer logo. I think it was in issue 49 or 50. Here we have Rachel Summers down here on the spine. I love that image of her by Alan Davis when she's just siphoning the power of the Dark Phoenix. Volume 2, of course. And then the back of the book, all the covers to the comics that are collected in this particular omnibus. The book retails for $125. Let's look at it underneath the dust jacket. I love when they do this. So in case you got the direct market cover or the standard edition cover, you're really getting both inside of the dust jacket. So the art on the front board here is the standard edition covers, issue number 42 by Alan Davis, The Return of Alan Davis, the Excalibur logo, volume 2 down there, and then the direct market cover here by Joe Mad. Now, let's crack this baby open, talk about some of the stories in here, show off the artwork, and then talk about the build of the book. All right, let's get this book open. Very excited to talk about some of these stories in here. So there's your end paper. Here is this wonderful logo. I think this was designed for issue number 50 of Excalibur. Here are all the credits for the writers, the pencilers, inkers, colorists, letterers. I love it. This image here, what was it, issue 47, 48 of Excalibur. This is actually one that I suggested using for the cover, but it's not the greatest Alan Davis. And of course, Nightcrawler's leg is broken during this time. One notable absent here is, of course, Chris Claremont. So this does not contain any Chris Claremont stories. Here is your table of contents, where you will find each of these stories in here. And it kicks it off with this weird story, rightly called Weird War 3. So this is one by Michael Higgins, and it's drawn by Tom Morgan. And it's the return of these characters that were in the Cross-Time Caper. It was like these Nazi versions of Excalibur. And it's a dark story, because we're looking at mutants being burned alive, like in the first couple of pages. That is some dark imagery right there. And Weird War 3. That's pretty much what this is. It's a graphic novel, so it was originally released as a graphic novel. It wasn't part of any of Excalibur's ongoing issues, but it does feature the team, and like I said, this alternate reality with some twists and turns as to like who ends up taking Hitler's role when Hitler is disposed of. Let's keep going. I do appreciate that when these graphic novels are collected, they collect everything, like the pinups that are in there, and then even the back of the graphic novel if it had some kind of graphic. Then we kick off the ongoing issues of Excalibur, still with some fill-in writers. This is issue number 35, written by Scott Lobdell. You have artwork in here from Dave Ross. And let's talk about the content of the book then. So you saw that it had Excalibur Weird War 3. It also contains Excalibur issues 35 through 67, the Possession one-shot, Heir Apparent one-shot, the Double X Crossing, Sensational She-Hulk number 26, which has some early Brian Hitch artwork, if I'm not mistaken, and then material for Marvel Comics Presents 75 through and 110. So this here is just a issue featuring Rachel and having images of her future. Because keep in mind, she comes from this possible future that's like Days of Future Past, pretty much, where this character known as Ahab was in control of her. We have some Megan-centric issues in here. We have some Captain Britain-centric issues in here. Here is the Marvel Comics Presents 8-page story, and then the issue of She-Hulk. And I love that Brian Hitch is the artist on this, because when Brian Hitch took over She-Hulk, you know, I think they purposely hired him because he had a John Byrne look to his art, and it was John Byrne stepping away from She-Hulk. So in this, you can really see his Alan Davis like influence. I've always said that about him, though. Ever since I remember finding his artwork at a young age, I thought, oh man, this guy is just like Alan Davis. And he got better as he went on. And of course, he ended up, developing his own thing. Now, I don't think a lot of people still compare him to Alan Davis because he kind of developed his own style. He's, one of these A-list artists now. And then we get this story right here. I think I've talked about it in my channel before, how this was one of the hardest stories to get through for me. And that is because of the artwork in here. This is Mark Badger. It's only a 3-issue story with Doctor Doom, but as a kid, I had the hardest time getting through this. Even the rip-off Alan Davis fill-in artists that they got were better than that artwork to me. As I got older, though, I reread them recently. I think it was in the Epic collection. And it wasn't recently. Oh my gosh, just time flies. It was probably 2 or 3 years ago. But, yeah, they're still not my favorite. So then we have the one-shots here. This is The Possession, which is just exactly what it states. It's the possession of Megan. And then we have this right here, which is Heir Apparent, which is a follow-up to a story. It was a fill-in issue about Airwalker in the pages of Excalibur. And that's pretty much what this is. It's Alistair Stewart here. So this is a character that appeared early on. She's part of the Who, the Weird Happening organization. And yes, her and her brother, Alistair Stewart, were all based on, of course, Doctor Who. And it's pretty much Chris Claremont and Alan Davis's love of Doctor Who. And even the Who organization, of course. There's a lot of other little throwbacks in here you can find out for yourself, like Easter eggs. This is a pretty interesting story. Not really much to write about, but just each of the chapters are broken down by different artists. You have Eric Larson, Rick Leonardi, you have Butch Guice, just to name a few of the artists in there. And then you have this, the phenomenal return of Alan Davis to the pages of Excalibur with Bird Butt there. So not just Alan Davis is back, but he brings back TechNet and Gatecrasher. Oh my gosh, what are their names? I think that's Numbers, Joy Boy, Pharaoh. Well, no, this is Pharaoh 2 now. Body Bag, Scatterbrain, and Thug, China Doll, Waxworks. Man, I used to be so good at that. Like, I remember I was so proud of myself for knowing TechNet because none of my friends knew of Excalibur. Like, everybody was like, that read comics back then was either X-Men or New Mutants or X Factor, but hardly anybody read Excalibur because during the time when we were buying these comics, Excalibur was exclusive to comic book stores. I never saw it out at Walmart or your pharmacy, wherever we would get our comics. So my friends they were like, dude, Excalibur doesn't count. That's a joke comic. And I felt so special reading it. I thought, oh man, you guys are missing out. There's some funny things in here. This has Nightcrawler. This has Phoenix. We're talking about Days of Future Past characters. This has Shadowcat. And speaking of Shadowcat, I have to say, Alan Davis's version of Megan, Alan Davis's version of Shadowcat, or Kitty Pryde, Kate Pryde, whatever she goes by these days, I think are just the definition of what the character should look like. I mean, it does help that he co-created Megan, but I think Kitty Pryde, I can't think of any other artist that has done Kitty Pryde justice. To me, I think he draws the perfect Kate Pryde, and I had such a crush on her. His Nightcrawler is pretty good too, though, not gonna lie. But man, the curves that he draws on Megan and then later on Cerise. So yeah, let's talk about what else is in here. So you have the return of TechNet. Captain Britain goes on trial. The team gets a little bit separated. Nightcrawler has to have his own little TechNet team temporarily. There's an identity crisis that Megan is facing. I love that they included the Inferno Megan there. We have the return of this character right here, who first appeared, believe it or not, in Excalibur issue number 2, Colin. He was a little kid. He went off with this little robot head known as Widget. But he comes back as a mature man now with his own mutant abilities. And his own mutant abilities have very little to do with swords. You can find out for yourself what he does. I think it's kind of cute. This is Kylun. And he comes in with a broken past. He's really messed up because of something that has happened recently. Through him, we get to find this new kind of sorcerer. His name is Necrom, who plays a big role in not just Phoenix's life, but also the life of the characters of Excalibur. We also have the return of Saturnine. We have the return of Merlin. We have the return of Roma in here. So just classic characters from the pages of not just early Excalibur, but also Captain Britain, which is coming back out in omnibus format in case you've never read some of those stories. And then we have Cerise joining the team. She's a Shi'ar character, making her first appearance here. And this is really cool. So it was issue 50. This is when the old logo is crushed in the style of Uncanny X-Men 130, 135, where the Dark Phoenix is crushing it. So Necrom has this fascination with the Dark Phoenix. He wants to absorb its power and become a host for it, while there's the Anti-Phoenix out there. So there's Micromax, who's now part of the team. We have Kylun join them. We have Cerise. And we have this other character named Pharaon, who made his appearance, I think, a couple issues before this right here. So this is a huge battle between, yes, right here, Rachel and Necrom. And with the new Excalibur logo. I felt so alone because nobody knew the stories I was talking about. I'm like, you guys didn't see where Necrom fought Rachel? Man, it was so badass. Yeah, all right, man. Whatever. If it wasn't happening in X-Men, nobody hardly cared. And those were people that were reading comics, right? Imagine having non-comic reader friends and being the only one that's reading Excalibur. We do have Alan Davis write a bunch of these. He does end up leaving the book, but not yet. We have some fill-in artists step in. But he's continuing doing the plot lines. He's continuing doing the dialogue, and he comes back as the artist. We have a team up again, or a reunion rather, of Captain Britain. I love this reunion. Let me see if I can find it. Actually, before the reunion, we have this particular story here. Now Widget comes back looking a little bit different, and he's about to take the characters on a journey, on a big journey that's going to forever change them. So here is the Excalibur versus X-Men Special Edition. This is the Double X crossover. Here are all your creators that help with the book. You see Dwayne Turner in there, Jay Lee, Malcolm Jones. But the big one, of course, to me as a kid that stood out was this guy right here, Joe Madureira. I had seen his art in the pages of Marvel Comics Presents, and I was like, oh man, this guy has an Arthur Adams type of art style. It's pretty good. And here we go. And I remember knowing exactly who it was when I saw it here, because I knew it wasn't Arthur Adams. There was just something about his art that didn't say, art, that didn't really speak Arthur Adams. It had Arthur Adams, but with a little more anime feel to it. So I knew it was that one guy that I saw in Marvel Comics Presents. Here's Jay Lee's, some of the early work by Jay Lee. There's an early Scott Collins fill-in issue in here too. Scott Collins, who rose to fame because of the pages of Flash that he worked on with Jeff Johns. Yes, this is the reunion, I think. Yeah, I love the way that this begins, because it begins like a panel of a comic book. A splash page panel of a comic book is the cover. And it's this fight between brother and sister. This is Betsy Braddock. Because of changes through acts of vengeance, this is what she looks like now, and this is Brian dealing with the fact that his sister has changed physically, but is still his sister. There's a returning character in here, a returning villain from not only the pages of early Excalibur, but also Captain Britain. There is, unfortunately, a death of a character in here that I did not see coming, and then we get this. And the X-Men! I love this. So this is the issue right here they use for the cover of the direct market. This is the one that I strongly suggested using because I love this cover, and it's early Joe Mad. So two interesting things about this. Number one, Sam Keith. Interesting that they're using Sam Keith up here of Wolverine's head. Probably from Marvel Comics Presents. Number two, this cat. This dude right here, Joe Madureira, was only 16 and a half years old when he drew this. 16 and a half. I thought this was a man. I thought this was like in his 40s man, like I am today. Damn, I feel old just like that with that sentence. But I thought this guy was a fine craftsman that, was trying to break it into the world of comics. I thought he'd been drawing, he's 40 years old sitting at home. This guy was 16 and a half, and I go back, and I'm glad I didn't know that back then, because back then, I was 15, 16, or, no, I was more like 13. He's a couple of years older than I am. So I was 12, 13, trying to draw as hard as I could, right? I didn't find out until I was in my 30s that how young Joe Mad was when he broke into comics. And that would have shattered my world, because if I was 16 years old trying to break into comics compared to this, I would have been like, yeah, okay, well, it's time to give up. I'm going to go work at McDonald's or Walmart now. So thank goodness I didn't know that at the time. This is a really interesting story, because this is one of those stories that kind of spun out of the pages of X Factor. This character known as Alchemy and all these trolls started in the pages of X Factor. But that was one of the characters. Alchemy was created by a fan. It was a contest that they had. He was originally supposed to appear in the pages of New Mutants, I want to say. And then because of delay and delay and delay after delay, they finally stuck the story into the pages of X Factor. So it's interesting that they came back and used that character. But not just that, they also used Joe Mad, who during this time has a very similar style to Arthur Adams, who did draw those 2 issues of X Factor. I think it's issues 41 and 42 with Alchemy. So I thought that was a really cool way of just making this work out. Then about, a couple years later, this guy's the ongoing artist of Uncanny X-Men. But this is the first time he drew the X-Men, I think, outside of the Mojo story that he did for Marvel Comics Presents. And I don't know, there's just a lot of history here. And I love seeing him evolve. You could definitely tell that he had influence by Arthur Adams, but he really gravitated towards those dynamic anime styles. I've been a fan of his since the first day I saw his art. And then we get this, what is this, Excalibur 2 story. It's kind of works like a fill-in issue. And then we get the continuation of where Widget took these characters. Now Rachel is donning the Phoenix costume. She's, harnessing that power. She understands who she's supposed to be instead of wearing the Hound costume that she's been wearing since she first appeared in the pages of Uncanny X-Men. So I'm glad that she got that costume. We get Nightcrawler gets a new costume for a little bit. The team goes on this mission. It's an alternate reality mission. There's Ahab. You see a lot of characters show up through here. Not just familiar to those that have been reading X-Men, but also familiar to those that have been reading Captain Britain or Excalibur with Chris Claremont and Alan Davis. It's a lot of fun. It's a great story. I think to me, Excalibur was just the sister title that didn't get a lot of attention and didn't sell as many copies as X-Men or X Factor or even New Mutants. But it was always a fun break from everything else. It's like they were in their own little corner of the Marvel or even Mutant universe. And every once in a while they were allowed to play with the other kids in the playground. And I thought that was a cool way to treat these characters. Now, after Alan Davis leaves, however, let's look at the extras. Here we have some extras from the Marvel Age 100th issues, an interview with Alan Davis, I think it was Joe Mad. Some house ads, this awesome poster. What I was going to say is after Alan Davis leaves, I think Scott Lobdell becomes the ongoing writer, and then eventually it's Terry Cavanagh, Warren Ellis, and they really are completely tied into the, what's up there, Kate Pride and Cerise? I see you. This is Marvel Swimsuit, of course. But yeah, they're completely intertwined in the X-Men's lives by that point. Alan Davis, Chris Claremont had the idea of keeping these mutants away from everyone else. So, you can enjoy these side adventures while the X-Men were fighting, these gigantic threats that were going to destroy the planet. Not that Excalibur didn't have that going on, but it just seemed like nobody paid attention to them. So, when Alan Davis leaves and Scott Lobdell takes over, you get the Jim Lee trading cards in here. Hell yeah. And this is the series 2. Let me see, there's Alan Davis, I think, did all of these. Yep, he did. Did they do the back of the card? Oh, they don't do the back of the cards. I wish they had shown the back of the cards. Oh, the cover sketches. That's awesome. But I miss this much more simpler time when the X-Men were so disconnected. I mean, there was a reason why the Excalibur team were formed to begin with, was because they thought the X-Men were dead and they needed to stand up for what's right. Not just for mutants, but for humans as well. And, by the time Davis leaves the book, it's another X-Men title. Not that there's anything wrong with that, because I love my X-Men titles. But it just became less special. Even with the chromium covers, even with the forced crossover with Fatal Attractions, it just became another X-Men title. Here are the covers for the trade paperbacks that I actually enjoy the new colors. I know people are really offended when new colors are used sometimes. I don't mind. Like on that looks freaking badass. I wouldn't have minded that as the spine at all. But these are the new covers that they use for the trade paperbacks. Or new colors, rather. Now, let's talk about this binding. The book has 1,080 pages. It is printed at the iMac printer, but this is what the eye looks like. You'll have sewn binding. Thought it laid over really well. Let me see if I can find a few splash page or spread pages rather. I don't think there's really any towards the beginning because of these graphic novels that they have. You know, when Davis comes back, there's a few. Let's see. That's not really a splash page. All right, sorry. This is one of the ones I could find in the book. Let's see how right I was. Waxworks, Joy Boy, Body Bag, China Doll, Scatterbrain, Pharaoh 2, Thug, Ring Toss. Did I forget about that guy? I sort of still got it. 12-year-old Omar would have been proud of me for still remembering some of those TechNet names. And that, as they say, is that. If you're interested in purchasing this book, don't forget to check out our sponsor, cheapgraphicnovels.com, your online home for brand new graphic novels and collected editions up to 50% off cover price. They pride themselves on packaging your books so they arrive safely in an excellent condition, as well as prompt and helpful service. Check out the bargain deals for up to 90% off cover price. CGN is excited to announce that they are now taking pre-orders. They're making it easier for you to ensure that you don't miss out on the hottest releases. CGN is currently running a special promotion for your mentees. If you're a first-time customer, let them know that you were referred by near mint condition at the checkout, and you'll receive a credit for free shipping on your next order. This promotion is valid for U.S. customers only. Cheap Graphic Novels, your source for the hottest books with the kind of deep discount and quality shipping and customer service that will keep you coming back for more. And that was the content, the page count, and build of this omnibus. Let me know in the comments down below if you're picking this up, if you enjoyed Volume 1, went in it completely blind, if you've never read any of these stories, what you thought about some of the stories, if you have read them, and what you thought about the return of Alan Davis. Again, this was the Uncanny Omar. Thank you all so much for watching. Don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe if you haven't subscribed yet, ring that bell for notifications to let you know when our videos are going live. We are on Spreadshop and on Patreon, amazing ways to support the channel. And more importantly, everyone, stay healthy, stay safe, much love.